What happens when Hollywood's most respected legend sits down for what should be a routine interview, only to face an ambush of personal attacks and political accusations? In just 37 seconds, one shocking comment would expose the true nature of daytime television's most controversial host, leading to an explosive confrontation that would leave viewers stunned and one icon walking off, set forever. The studio lights blazed hot as Clint Eastwood settled into the familiar chair on the View set. At 89 years old, the legendary actor and director had seen it all in Hollywood, but nothing could have prepared him for what was about to unfold. He adjusted his jacket, that familiar squint softening as he prepared for what he believed would be a pleasant conversation about his latest film project. Joy Behar sat across from him, her eyes already gleaming with something that looked less like curiosity and more like hunger. The other hosts flanked the table, but it was clear who was running the show. The cameras rolled, and what started as a standard introduction quickly transformed into something much darker. "So Clint," Joy began, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "you're here to talk about your new movie, but I think we all know what people really want to hear about. Your politics." Clint shifted slightly, his weathered hands clasping together. "Well, I'm here to talk about the film, Joy. It's a story about—" "Oh, please," Joy interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. "You can't seriously expect to come on this show and just talk movies when you've been such a vocal supporter of certain political figures. I mean, talking to an empty chair? Really?" The reference hit like a slap. Clint's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but his voice remained steady. "That was a creative choice at the Republican National Convention. I was making a point about—" "A point?" Joy's voice rose an octave. "You made yourself look ridiculous. And now you want us to just pretend like you're some serious filmmaker? Come on, Clint, let's be honest here." The other hosts exchanged uncomfortable glances. Even they seemed to recognize that Joy was pushing too hard, too fast. But she was just getting started. Clint leaned back in his chair, his famous composure intact despite the obvious provocation. "Joy, I've been making films for over 50 years. I think my work speaks for itself. This new project is about—" "Your work speaks for itself?" Joy's laugh was sharp and cutting. "You mean like when you made that movie about the American sniper? Glorifying war and violence? Is that what your work says about you?" The studio audience fell silent. Even the camera operators seemed to sense the shift in atmosphere. This wasn't an interview anymore. This was an attack. "American Sniper was about the human cost of war," Clint replied, his voice growing quieter but somehow more powerful. "It was about a man struggling with his service and the price he paid. If you had actually watched the film instead of reading reviews that fit your agenda—" "My agenda?" Joy's voice cracked like a whip. "My agenda is calling out Hollywood elites who think they can push their right-wing propaganda and then waltz onto our show like nothing happened. You think because you're Clint Eastwood, you get a free pass?" The veteran actor's eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with something deeper. Disappointment, perhaps. "I think I deserve the same respect you'd give any guest, Joy. I came here in good faith to talk about my work." "Good faith?" Joy was leaning forward now, her finger pointed across the table. "You want to talk about good faith? How about the good faith of the American people who looked up to you, only to watch you embarrass yourself on national television? How about the good faith of moviegoers who expect better from someone with your reputation?" One of the other hosts, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation, tried to interject. "Maybe we should." "No." Joy cut her off without even looking in her direction. "I'm not done. Clint, you've spent decades building this tough guy image, this man of few words persona. But when it really mattered, when the country needed real leadership, you sided with chaos. You sided with division." Clint's hands remained folded, but his knuckles had gone white. "I sided with what I believed was right for America, just like you side with what you believe is right. The difference is, I don't attack people for disagreeing with me. Don't you?" Joy's smile was predatory now. "Didn't you make a whole movie attacking liberals? Didn't you use your platform to mock and diminish people like me? And now you want to sit there and play the victim?" The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Clint looked around the table at the other hosts, searching for some sign of fairness, some indication that someone else might step in to redirect this ambush back towards something resembling a civil conversation. "I've never made a movie attacking anyone," Clint said slowly, each word measured and deliberate. "I make movies about human stories, about people struggling with difficult choices. If you see attacks in that, maybe that says more about you than it does about me." Joy's face flushed red. "Are you calling me paranoid? Are you sitting there, on my show, suggesting that I'm imagining things?" I'm suggesting that maybe you're so focused on politics that you can't see past them to the actual human stories I'm trying to tell. Human stories? Joy's voice was rising again. What's human about glorifying violence? What's human about making movies that celebrate everything wrong with this country? You've spent your career making films about vigilantes and killers, and now you want to lecture me about humanity? The other hosts were looking down at their notes now, clearly wishing they were anywhere else. The studio audience was dead silent, sensing they were witnessing something that had gone far beyond entertainment into something much more personal and ugly. Clint took a slow breath, his legendary composure stretched to its limit. Joy, I think you're confusing the characters I've played with, who I am as a person, and you're confusing entertainment with reality. My films explore complex themes. Complex themes? Joy was practically shouting now. Is that what you call it? You think putting a gun in someone's hand and having them solve problems with violence is complex? You think that's the message we need to be sending to young people? I think young people are smart enough to understand the difference between fiction and reality, something that seems to be challenging for you. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Joy's mouth fell open, her face cycling through several shades of red. The camera caught every moment of her stunned silence before she found her voice again. Excuse me? Joy's voice was dangerously quiet now, like the calm before a tornado. Did you just suggest that I can't tell the difference between fiction and reality? Did you just insult my intelligence on my own show? Clint remained perfectly still, his weathered face showing no emotion. I suggested that maybe you're letting your political feelings cloud your judgment about art and storytelling. My political feelings? Joy was gripping the edge of the table now. My political feelings are based on caring about this country, about the people in it. Your political feelings seem to be based on nostalgia for a time that never really existed. And what time would that be, Joy? You know exactly what I'm talking about. The good old days when men like you could say whatever you wanted, do whatever you wanted, and everyone else just had to deal with it. When women knew their place and minorities stayed quiet. The accusation was so outrageous, so far removed from anything resembling truth, that even the other hosts looked shocked. One of them actually gasped audibly. Clint's composure finally cracked, just slightly. His voice remained controlled, but there was steel beneath it now. That's a terrible thing to say, Joy, and it's completely untrue. Is it? Joy was leaning across the table now, invading his space. Then explain to me why every single one of your movies features the same type of character. The strong, silent white man who solves problems with violence. The man who doesn't need to listen to anyone else because he already knows best. You're describing fictional characters, not my personal beliefs. Are they fictional? Or are they wish fulfillment? Are they your way of showing the world how you think things should really work? Clint shook his head slowly. Joy, I've made over 30 films as a director. I've told stories about jazz musicians, about soldiers, about regular people facing extraordinary circumstances. If all you can see is what fits your preconceived notions, then maybe the problem isn't with my movies. Don't you dare turn this around on me. Joy's voice cracked like a whip. I've been watching movies longer than you've been making them, and I know what I see. I see an old man clinging to outdated ideas about masculinity and America. You see what you want to see. What I see is someone who thinks his fame gives him the right to influence politics without taking responsibility for the consequences. What I see is someone who thinks he can hide behind art, when really he's just pushing an agenda. Clint's hands unclenched for the first time since the attack began. He placed them flat on the table, a gesture that somehow seemed more threatening than if he had made fists. Joy, let me ask you something. Have you ever created anything? Have you ever put yourself out there, taken a risk? Tried to tell a story that might help people understand each other better? I create dialogue. I create conversation. Every day on this show. You create controversy. There's a difference. Joy's face went white, then red again. How dare you come on my show and lecture me about what I create? You think because you're some Hollywood legend you can sit there and judge me? I'm not judging you. I'm trying to understand why you asked me here if all you wanted to do was attack me. I asked you here to hold you accountable? For what exactly? For making movies you don't like? For having political opinions that differ from yours? For being successful in spite of your disapproval? The last question hit home. Joy's mouth opened and closed several times before she found her voice. Your success doesn't make you right, Clint. Your fame doesn't protect you from criticism. I never said it did. But criticism and personal attacks are two different things. You haven't criticized my work. You've attacked my character based on your assumptions about my politics. Your politics inform your work. Of course they do. Just like your politics inform your hosting. The difference is, I don't pretend to be objective. One of the other hosts tried again to redirect the conversation. Maybe we could talk about the technical aspects of filmmaking. No! Joy slammed her hand on the table, making everyone jump. We're not done here. Clint thinks he can come on this show and make me look foolish. But I've been doing this for decades. I know how to handle bullies. The word hung in the air like an accusation. Clint's eyebrows raised slightly, the closest he'd come to showing surprise during the entire exchange. I'm a bully? His voice was so quiet the microphones had to strain to pick it up. You're trying to intimidate me with that whole strong and silent act. You think if you sit there calm and collected while I get emotional, the audience will side with you? Well, I see right through it. Joy, I'm sitting here calmly because that's who I am. I don't raise my voice to make my point. I don't attack people personally when I disagree with them, and I certainly don't ambush guests on television. Ambush? Joy laughed, but there was no humor in it. This is called journalism, Clint. This is called holding powerful people accountable for their actions and their influence. This is called a hatchet job. The words were delivered so matter-of-factly, with such quiet certainty, that they hit harder than if he had shouted them. Joy recoiled as if she had been slapped. A hatchet job? You think this is a hatchet job? I'm asking you legitimate questions about your very public political statements and your movies that influence millions of people. You're making assumptions about my character based on fictional roles I've played and then attacking me for things I never said or did. That's the definition of a hatchet job. I am not attacking you. Then what would you call this conversation, Joy? The question sat between them like a landmine. Joy looked around the table at her co-hosts, perhaps hoping for support, but found only uncomfortable silence. I would call it holding you accountable, she said finally, her voice lacking its earlier conviction. For what crime, Joy? For making movies? For having opinions? For not agreeing with your worldview? For using your platform irresponsibly, like you're using yours right now? The comparison struck home. Joy's face twisted with anger and something that looked almost like panic. She was losing control of the interview, losing control of the narrative, and everyone in the studio could see it. That's completely different. And you know it. How is it different? You have a platform. You use it to express your political views. You attack people who disagree with you. How is that different from what you're accusing me of doing? Because I'm right. The words exploded out of Joy before she could stop them. Because my views are based on compassion and justice and equality, and yours are based on outdated macho fantasies. Clint stared at her for a long moment, and for the first time since the interview began, he looked genuinely sad. Joy? Do you hear yourself? You just said you're right and I'm wrong, as if that's some kind of objective fact, as if your political opinions are somehow more valid than mine because you feel more strongly about them. They are more valid. When your opinions hurt people, when they support policies that damage this country, then yes, my opinions are more valid. And who decides which opinions hurt people? You? Common sense decides. Basic human decency decides. Clint shook his head slowly. You know what hurts people, Joy? Being told that their thoughts and feelings don't matter because someone else has decided they're wrong. Being attacked for having different experiences that led them to different conclusions. Oh, please, don't try to make yourself the victim here. I'm not making myself anything. I'm pointing out that you invited me on your show under false pretenses, ambushed me with personal attacks, and then called me a bully when I defended myself. If that's not victimization, what is? Joy was breathing heavily now, her carefully applied makeup starting to show stress lines. You think you can just waltz in here with that folksy wisdom act and make me look bad? I think I can come on a talk show and expect to be treated with basic courtesy. Apparently I was wrong. Courtesy? You want courtesy? After everything you've done to divide this country? What have I done to divide this country, Joy? Specifically, not what you think my movies represent or what you imagine my politics mean, but what have I actually done? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Joy opened her mouth several times, but no words came out. She was trapped, and she knew it. You supported. I exercised my right as an American citizen to support the candidates I believed in, just like you do, just like everyone in this audience does. That's not division, Joy. That's democracy. It's not the same thing when you have millions of fans. So famous people should give up their right to political participation? Should they be silent about issues they care about? Should they pretend they don't have opinions to make you more comfortable? They should be responsible, like you're being responsible right now. Joy slammed both hands on the table this time, making the water glasses jump. Stop turning this back on me. This isn't about me, isn't it? You're the one who's been attacking me for the last 15 minutes. You're the one who invited me here just to ambush me. You're the one who's been making personal accusations based on nothing but your political prejudices. My political prejudices? Joy's voice cracked. How dare you accuse me of prejudice? What would you call judging someone based on assumptions rather than facts? What would you call attacking someone's character because you don't like their politics? I would call it holding people accountable for their actions. What actions, Joy? You keep saying that, but you haven't identified a single specific action I've taken that justifies this treatment. The studio had gone completely silent, except for the hum of the cameras and the sound of Joy's labored breathing. Even the producers in the booth seemed to have stopped moving. You, your movies, are fiction, entertainment, art, if you're feeling generous. They're not policy papers or political manifestos. They influence people. So does your show. So do books and music and television and every other form of media. Should we shut it all down because it might influence someone? Joy looked around desperately, seeking an escape from the logical trap she'd walked into. You're twisting my words. I'm using your words, your logic. If famous people are responsible for how their work might influence others, then you're responsible for how your attacks on me might influence your audience's opinion of me? Are you comfortable with that responsibility? That's completely different. How? Because, Joy was stuttering now, her composure completely shattered. Because you're wrong. Because everything you represent is wrong. Clint stood up slowly, his movements deliberate and controlled. The action seemed to catch everyone by surprise, including Joy, who stopped mid-sentence with her mouth hanging open. Joy, he said quietly, his voice carrying easily across the silent studio. I came here today to talk about a movie I made. A story I wanted to tell about people overcoming difficult circumstances. Instead, you turn this into a political attack based on your assumptions about who I am and what I believe. Sit down, Joy said weakly. We're not finished. Yes, we are. Clint's voice was firm but not angry. I don't need to sit here and be insulted by someone who's made up her mind about me without bothering to listen to what I actually have to say. You can't just walk away. Watch me. Joy lurched to her feet, panic clear in her voice now. You think you can just leave? You think you can run away when things get tough? That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly the kind of entitled behavior. Clint turned back to face her, and for a moment, his famous squint was back. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of every tough guy character he'd ever played, but the words were purely his own. Joy, I've been in this business for over 60 years. I've faced down critics, studio executives, protesters, and every kind of controversy you can imagine. I didn't run from any of them, but I also didn't waste my time trying to reason with people who had already made up their minds to hate me. Life's too short, and frankly, so is this conversation. He turned and walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. Joy called after him, her voice shrill and desperate. This is what you do. This is exactly what you do. You walk away when someone challenges you. Clint paused at the edge of the set and looked back one final time. No, Joy, this is what I do when someone attacks me instead of challenging me. There's a difference. Maybe someday you'll learn it. And with that, the legend walked off, the view set forever, leaving behind a host whose credibility had just evaporated in front of millions of viewers, and an audience that had witnessed the exact kind of entitled, confrontational behavior that Clint Eastwood had spent his entire career standing against.